the human beings themselves and what is necessary to be free of the fears, anger, ignorance that often besets the human being in times of stress. It is with great pleasure and my honor to introduce to you, I'm Prakash, Reverend Dr. John Gilmore, who really needs no introduction. His resume is lengthy. His service is unquestioned, and his compassion to live out that life of making a more just society is real. So we just welcome to this platform, Reverend Dr. John Gilmore.
Hello, everybody.
And Nadia, if I could just ask you to pin spotlight Dr. John for us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Unfortunately, this isn't going to be a very patriotic sermon, but it expresses some hope, I think. I was inspired on the train from a General Assembly I went to this last week in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This year, we rode along rails past factories, farmhouses, the backyards of Pennsylvania, all across small streets with flashing red lights. And I saw a lot of towns that I had never heard of in Pennsylvania. They looked very quiet and very peaceful. They looked like places I'd want to live in. But deep inside in my heart, I knew that I could not live in them. I thought of how unwelcome I would be in small towns in central Pennsylvania, the place we often call the Mississippi of the North, because of just how they were. I was destined, you see, to live in a city, destined to live in urban centers for safety's sake because of the color of my skin and the prejudices that would most likely be projected on me because of all the projections that are cast onto people like me, regardless of who I am, where I was born, and the things I liked or my personality. I would likely be non-accepted and maybe even tortured because of a vast minority of people whose deplorable behavior would go unchecked, and that often goes unchecked in the United States. And that is the shame of living in the United States now and in many of the colonized countries. There's a celebration of freedom, of justice, of the ability to work one's way up in order to be the best that one can. But somewhere along the way, some of us were excluded from that issue and that option. And so I watched with a bag of popcorn in my hand as my train passes through small towns that I would love to live in, but would most likely not be accepted in. And this too, of course, is drawing on stereotypes about people in small towns, but also on the history and on past events in my lifetime and in the lifetime of most African Americans that are real and have happened over and over again. The feeling of that train ride and looking out the window was very different from what I saw on the movie Independence Day. I watched in rapt attention a long time ago. Many of you might remember it. It goes something like this. Extraterrestrials came to Earth. They wanted to take over. They parked their ships over every capital and began to obliterate people. Everybody was panicking, going crazy. People were being shot dead in the streets. There were all kinds of explosives and explosions, but Will Smith's character wasn't like anyone else, nor was the First Lady. She was in the street with the Will Smith character's wife, feeding the homeless, helping those who were suffering. And the president, who had been a fighter pilot, went out before everyone when they discovered a weapon that they could use against these extraterrestrials. He, along with Will Smith, not only went out to fight against the extraterrestrials, but led an international group against them, turned them back. Everyone pulled together because there was an outside cause. They all worked together to save the world as one people one world. As I watched this, I wondered what would have really happened. Later, when COVID hit, I began to see that humans didn't pull together when they were hit by something that would be devastating. People couldn't even buy toilet paper for a couple of weeks in the Philadelphia area. In Philadelphia, someone had bought up most of the toilet paper, paper towels, and sanitizers that they believed that we needed to use to save our lives at the time, and was selling them for an unreasonable price on the internet. One of the governors in Maryland had to get his Korean wife to buy masks for him from outside the country and smuggle them in so they wouldn't be stolen. And various shipments of masks going to so-called liberal cities like Boston were in fact stolen. I saw the same behavior I had experienced throughout my life on steroids. Instead of moving higher and to higher ground, they became selfish. They began to clump together. They began to go backwards instead of forward and sink into all of the old prejudices and ways of discriminating that were prevalent in the past. It was almost like the process of extinction we run into when we think about behavior modification. This process can be seen when one has conditioned an animal. If you give a pigeon a pellet every time he hits the lever, it's happy and it keeps hitting the lever more and more. But if you stop giving it the pellet or the reinforcement as it's called, it hits the lever and doesn't get anything. When it doesn't get anything, it gets agitated and hits the lever harder and harder with more frequency, hoping to get that same positive reinforcement that it had gotten earlier. It stops hitting the lever after a long period of time, but every so often, most of its life, it will go and hit that lever a few times, looking for the same type of reinforcement it had in the past. I call the collective behavior modification that a large portion of people in the United States have. And they have partaken of it, and they are still affected by it. And I call it MAGA, Make America Great Again. By trying to go back to an imaginary time of feeling safe and secure, pushing for control, pushing for disempowerment of women, pushing for discriminatory practices of people of color, pushing to destroy labor unions and the welfare state, putting immigrants and their children in cages, building walls along the border, pushing to go backwards whenever a tragedy comes upon us, instead of joining together and overcoming it by pushing forward. And that is the tendency of a large group of people in our nation. And it's very frightening. On the original Independence Day, people were still buying and selling enslaved people. Native Americans were understood to be wild animals and savages without souls. Women were just there to take care of the men and have children. Many people were thrown under the bus in order to create a union so that those who were the leaders and people like them could prosper and survive, and so that all people could possibly be free in the future. Some didn't want to make the agreement, but some did, not only to save themselves, but for their own benefit, hoping that many people, the enslaved people, would never be free. Now this changed for a while. We have grown as a people, but there are some people who haven't changed, and they hold on to the same beliefs as way back then. The question is, what can we who believe in freedom do about it? What can those who believe in the living gospel of liberation do about it? I really don't have an answer for this, but I do have some suggestions. I think the first thing to do is for all of us to remember who we really are. We are not solely a race. The concept of race was invented in the 1600s in the United States. I think most people don't really even know about that. Until then, people went by their nationalities. We're not solely male, female, or transgender. We are not solely citizens of one country or the next. We are much greater. Some would call us the creative energy of the universe wrapped in human flesh. The Apostle Paul described us as the worship of ages contained in earthen vessels. Jesus talked about us as the light of the world, or the city of God, or the dwelling place of what we call God. Because of our creative nature, we are able to look at the world and to think clearly. We're able to dream great dreams. And if we work together to make those dreams come true, that is the human niche on this planet. That is our gift. That is what many of us have sold for a bowl of beans. As long as we cling to the other labels and think that our egos or conditioned selves are all that we are trapped in an artificial system designed to make us use our creative energy to support a system where 1% of the people own 90% of the resources and 99% of the people are fighting over 10%. Our energy is being wasted. We are being used to enslave ourselves and our neighbors and to create a world that's almost unbearable even for our own children. Child suicide rates are going up. Drugs usage is going up because people cannot stand the society that we have created in this nation, and this must stop. Secondly, it's necessary to reclaim our abilities to think. And when I say think, I am not only talking about logic and the so-called rational mind. I'm talking about what Qigong philosophy and the latest findings of science talk about. They say we're very complex beings, and they say that we have more than 200 trillion cells, all working together and all coordinated to make the whole work. Aside from this, there is even more biomatter in our guts and a cloud of germs and other living organisms living around and within our body in harmony. Somehow, in some way, all these things are communicating with each other. Scientists are baffled by this, and they think the only way this communication can be happening so fast is because these cells are communicating at the speed of light. Some physicists have even conjectured that this is because we are light, or part of one thing, as almost every spirituality teaches us, as us being part of the spoken word of God teaches us, as one being in a body of Christ teaches us. The object of Qigong is to connect the brain, which is the central nervous system, to the whole body through the peripheral nervous system, so we can begin to understand the feelings that we're receiving from the whole body. And as we begin to understand our feelings and understand them as messages and learn to translate what we are picking up from the environment, we wake up or become woke, as the people who are asleep hate to hear. The whole body becomes like a brain with every cell, all the biomatter, and with every germ communicating and interacting with the environment. The body is doing the perceiving, and the brain becomes the instrument that interprets what's being picked up without the prejudice or bias that happens when people claim that they are just being rational. We in turn become almost like superhuman beings. Our thinking includes thoughts, feelings, and intuition, and instead of just sitting there and trying to use logical syllogism. Yes, we still make if-then statements, but we're able to skip some of the steps. It becomes like a child who goes from crawling to walking. One can walk just about anywhere. One could be finished there. But when one can run or jump, it's altogether different. Our minds become faster, so they can move with ease. They can jump from one place to the next without having to go step by step. And this is the ultimate nature of the mature human mind. This is what they call being enlightened. This is what is quoted in the Bible, where Jesus says, "These things ye shall do, and ye shall do more." This is transcending the form, the human limitation that we have been given by a society that wants to shape us in order to use us to the best of its ability. Lastly, we will prosper if we stop arguing as to whether there is a God or not. I think that's the biggest waste of time in the world. There is no absolute proof that there is, and there is no absolute true proof that there isn't. And there is proof that there is, and there is proof that there isn't. There are so many definitions of God also that one cannot prove or disprove the existence of God or goddess or consciousness or love or the many adjectives that we use to try to describe what is beyond our understanding. We don't know for sure until our body is dead. There's an element of faith involved. And then even if we die and come back and say there is one, most people will not believe it's us anyway and think it's something they just ate that night and had a weird dream. The truth is that we are talking about archetypes. If there be a God or not, our understanding of it is something that comes from our own filter in our own heads. We're talking about stories, images, thoughts, and projections that take place deep in our collective conscious and subconscious that help us make sense of the world in which we live. I went to India one year on a pilgrimage to an ashram that combined Christianity with Hinduism. I was studying something called Nada Yoga, or the yoga of sound, which involved a lot of chanting. At the time I discovered, which surprised me, that all of the gods and the goddesses people were worshiping were like archetypes. They were the parts of one's own psyche that one had to come to terms with. One was drawn to the god or goddess that corresponded to the subconscious part of the self that one had to work with to heal oneself. It was as if they developed a sort of Jungian psychology before there was such a thing in the West, in order to heal themselves and the society psychologically, back when religion and science were combined. There were those who actually believed there were these big beings walking around, of course, but you often run into people like that everywhere. I would say the same is about deities now, what one is attracted to, or what one perceives as one, says more about the person than the god, goddess, or whatever one upholds or doesn't uphold as the center of one's universe. That's why it's still necessary to look closely and examine what it is. And it doesn't make one, if it doesn't make one a good person, the person one wants to be, one has to either change what they are believing or change oneself. Ralph Burrow, a Unitarian Universalist professor at the University of Chicago, once wrote a book called Toward a Scientific Theology. It's very interesting to consider his thinking because Ralph Burrow was a Jewish atheist. Now, when we hear about atheists, we say, oh, they don't believe in God. They have nothing to say, but there are some people who are atheists who believe in God, which might be shocking. Ralph Burrow thought of God as the power behind the process of evolution and extinction. He basically said that the groups of people who could stay together and create healing, nurturing societies would prosper, while those who couldn't would eventually end up in a state of extinction. He understood this as the blessings of God or not. He warned that as we grew in awareness and power, we, the people of the world, would have to move beyond placing our major emphasis on the phenotype or our physical characteristics and the culture type or the norms of whatever group we were in. But we would have to focus on the ecotype, realizing that we are part of a large ecosystem that we would have to nurture and care for first, or all human beings might become extinct, the place where we are right now. Religion for him was upholding an ideal that human beings were supposed to evolve toward until they transcended the limitations of fear, ignorance, prejudice, and lack of self-love and love for others. The problem is, however, that most of the religions and belief systems that were created to lift us up, to realize that we were part of something greater, part of the all in all, have fallen into the same trap of narrowness and ignorance, They were created to dissolve. They are trapped in culture types as they believe they are the only right ones because their culture is the best. And now they're going backwards into the phenotypes as they are talking about different races being better and more powerful than the others. So instead of moving us ahead and making us evolve into something greater, they seem to be pulling us backwards. What can we do to change this? What can we do to change the world? What can we do to make it better? Reclaim the power that we have as human beings. Reclaim our power to think clearly and use head and heart to know the truth. And lastly, reclaim our power to connect directly with that which we perceive as the ground of being, source of life, God by any name, realizing that people, according to their cultures, nationalities, ages, and language and experience, may be calling what we're talking about by another name. It's only natural that this should happen. Even if we talk about a fast car, every language has a different word for car, but they're all talking about the same thing. Why would we think that every language would speak about God the exact same way? When we have made that jump, when we realize that the only power that words and names have are the ones that we give to them, we will be free. We will be independent. Independence Day will come because we will not be dependent on some charismatic individual to come down from on high to save our communities and save the world. We will realize that it is all in our hands and all work together to create a world that will not only nurture ourselves or only our children, but our children's children and every living being. I think that in the Christian Bible, Jesus said, "It is finished," because it's time to stop waiting for a savior. And it's time to use the power we have been given to save ourselves and the rest of humanity. The word for save in Greek scripture comes from salvis, or to heal, to make whole. Let us be dedicated to doing that. And from that very moment, we will be free and fulfill our own destiny as human beings and children of God. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend John. Nadia, if you could remove the spotlight. Thank you so much. As always, you just drop so much on us in such a very powerful way. I'm going to just open up for any comments, questions, feedback, any thoughts that come up for anyone. Just go unmute and go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just feel always blessed to hear Mr. John talking, and I feel very embraced by the community that people have the same concerns, and we are worried about other issues in the world. So I feel very glad to be part of this community, to have found this. And these questions that we might not have answers for all of them, but we do have the questions. And when we do not question them, there is a problem. And I really appreciate John. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, well, thank you for sharing that, Wes. I think sometimes we feel inadequate if we don't have the answers. But I think the more powerful part is to frame the question, because the question then opens up the possibility for the answer to come. Jesus said, "Seek and ye shall find." You have to begin to look and inquire. If you think you know the answer, there's no place to go with it. But when you can say, you know, I'm not necessarily don't have all the answers, but I have some questions. And so I appreciate that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think that part of the problem with our system is it shapes what questions you ask. That they've become so sophisticated that they don't shape your answer. They actually come to the point where they can shape what questions you ask. And that way they can prevent your freedom all the time and make people who have the right questions afraid to even mention it. You know? Pretty satanic, actually.
That is so key, Reverend John. That the power in the question that many people don't understand. I raised my children, I've taught my kids and even my grandchildren. The one who asked the question really controls the conversation, because you're guiding where you want people to go.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, if you're not astute enough or in tune enough to recognize the assumptions that can be embedded in the question, which forces you into a certain place.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of following someone else's question, unpack that and frame your own question. Take back control of the conversation instead of chasing someone else's question, because they're always loaded with assumptions or beliefs that are embedded in that question. And you can find yourself running and chasing behind something where someone wants you to go. So that is very key in our society. We know that that's what happens. There's this whole debate we see politically. You know, we can turn on from one station to the other, and they're back and forth at each other. And really, they're all in the same barrel, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Really, they're all swimming in the same shark-infested ocean and want us to jump in there with them. Right?
Yeah.
Instead of us looking for another freshwater stream. Get out of there. Don't follow that path. You know, they're not taking us where we want to go.
Yeah, and one of the problems with the people who claim that, well, we're just logical and we're just rational, is they are the ones who decide what the premises are. They decide what you can use in order to discern the truth. And then you're using what they've created. So you're putting yourself in another box, you know, and you're always in their box because they're the ones who are deciding what parts of the little logical syllogism there is. So they're in total control all the time. But there is something called intuition and spiritual knowledge that comes. But that is not a step-by-step process. It's sort of like revelation. It comes to you. Science will have you break down everything step by step, so they can either try to steal it or co-opt it or use it over again because they're not creative themselves. But the human being that is really developed mentally, physically, and spiritually has these sort of revelations and these awakenings where things just pop out without going step by step by step. And usually the so-called rational people ignore them, whether it's the truth or not, and try to make them do this step-by-step process, which is what we're finding a lot in physics now and in science, where people are going these old spiritual concepts 5,000 and 6,000 years old and saying they've discovered them because they can put a formula, a mathematical formula to them, say discovered what people got from God, straight from God 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. And that's happening more and more nowadays.
Wow. Anyone else? Anyone else before we segue? Reverend John, you're going to come back as we close with final remarks, and I'm going to ask you. We're going to forego our usual closing prayer. Ask you to just do the closing prayer for us. And if you, as you think about, for your closing remarks, what would your response to be to a spiritual community in light of what's happening in our world governmentally and the discontent that so many people across the board feel? I know with the foregoing the student loan forgiveness really hit a lot of people, Black and white and brown and middle class, not so much the poor because a lot of them got their education paid for, but those who were working and struggling now after going to college, doing 2 and 3 jobs, Uber and all those other things, just to try to keep their heads above water. So a lot of people were crushed with that. And then that on the heels of affirmative actions. How are we to hold ourselves in a space, in a place where we're to bring the thoughts, the feelings, the intuition together, as you shared, to move us up to that higher way, that place of awakening and being woke. So just if you would just in any way, how you want to respond to that as you come back with the final remarks in our closing prayer. So Bettina is going to come now. Again, thank you, Reverend John. Bettina is going to come now and just kind of bring us back to center with our affirmations for creating a more just society.
Affirmations for creating a more society. I have the power to make a difference in someone's life. I am responsible and conscious member of a collective. I choose to live substantially and protect the environment. I am a source of inspiration and encouragement. I am a strong advocate for justice and equality. I am a leader in my community. I am kind and compassionate towards all beings. I am committed to making the world a more peaceful place. I'm responsible and trustworthy global citizen. I am a champion of diversity and embrace differences. I make space for all. I am dedicated to leaving the world a better place than I found it. I am proactive in addressing the challenges facing the world. I take action to help others. I am a positive force for good in the world.
Ashe and amen.
Ashe.
Yeah, and that should be affirmations for creating a more just society. That's a typo there. So for a more just society, let's take these with us throughout the week. All right, we're going to share our announcements. Nadia, if you could just bring those, if you can share those on the screen. We want to talk about music ministry, programs and upcoming events. Just go back a second. Our fundraising campaign and then volunteer opportunities. And so, yeah, if you would just bring those up and I'll try to go through them. So our biannual fundraising campaign, we have 2 weeks left. We opened June 15th. And this is something new that first time trying this, rather than doing the regular kind of quote unquote church way of raising money. And we know that's shifting, that's changing. We have decided from a board perspective to do twice a year, a 1 month fundraising campaign, June 15th to July 15th and December 15th to January 15th, to make up that shortfall in our budget that is not, that's there, we don't have the funds from other resources. So we're 2 weeks in and we thank everyone that's participated. Each of us have asked to commit to raising a certain amount, and thank you everyone that's moving forward with that. We've been advertising on social media and just by word of mouth to family and friends. But this particular campaign will support funding specifically for the areas and programs that you see on the screen. So our community vegetable garden, we received some grant funding for that, and we're trying to supplement that so we can just grow that to really be something wonderful in this community. Beautification projects where we're looking to paint the mural and then just really aesthetically make this corner something that feels energetic and alive for the community. Our youth engagement and internship program, we're looking to develop a youth mentoring program for our little ones and for our teens. Our community lunch program, our meditation and lunch on Fridays. Our holistic health and wellness, which engages our Tai Chi and our community Bible study, our divine feminine study group, all those things that help to grow us both as Dr. John talked about, intellectually, spiritually, intuitively, and in every way. And then crime reduction by fostering goodwill and building trust in cooperation and community. I think it's when we're connected to people, when people feel like you belong and they belong in the community into something, it helps them feel better about themselves. It helps them feel more worthy. And when we have build relationships, that's like building bridges. That's a way where we can speak into people. We can be the salt shaker. We can be the light to help people be their best. And that's what we're looking to do. So for those that are watching now or later, you're able to scan the QR code on your screen. And I just got introduced to this recently. So I'm coming into this. I'm really coming to the new age of technology. Like, how do you do that? I was like trying to do it a week ago and like all over the place. And the young lady had to tell me, no, you push that thing right there. So I figured it out. But you got the QR, for those of you that know, you scan that QR code and everything comes up where you can securely go in and make a donation right to our website, and it will add into what we're trying to do. There's the old-fashioned way to Cash App $ Trump 2020, but the technology, I mean, I'd like to just go to that new place. Yeah, so try it. And now you can go to the next one. Volunteers. We are recruiting volunteers specifically for our Newark Center here. And I'm so thankful for Brother Ben and Sister Julie that are here, who are supporting us for our Friday meditation and lunch. They've already started working with us, and just bless them for giving of their time and service to the community. We will be holding a volunteer recruitment day. I have lots of folks that are asking and saying what they would like to do. We're just trying to put it together so we can match people, their gifts and their talents and their skills with where we need them to serve. So if you're interested, you can email us at triumphlifecenter@gmail.com. Call me at 862-849-9562. You can go to our website, triumphthechurchofthenewaage.org/international, and you should be able to download the volunteer application and send it in right there. So whatever skills you have or don't have, there's a space and a place for you here at Triumph. So just come and find out more about how you can serve. Go ahead, Nadia. And even if you don't live in the local area, most of our ministry team, all of our ministry team are all over. Wes is in California, Brenda's in Boston, Nadia and Bettina are in Brooklyn. I'm in New Jersey, so we're all over the place. So even if you're not local, Minister Obina is in Nigeria, Reverend John is in Pennsylvania. Even if you're not local, you can still find a space and place where you can serve in this community. So don't let that deter you. If you're local, you can be on hand right here on site, but if not, we can still find a way where you can serve and support what we do. All right, Triumph Life Center's music ministry. We released our latest single, which is just really awesome, Sunshine City, this past Father's Day. We have a new one coming up. We don't know when that release date is going to be. We're still working on that. And this will be, I think, what's our last one for a while. It'll be our 12th one. And then we're going to do some other marketing things with this. But our music ministry, which Wesley is our creative arts and music director, this past year has just been awesome. We released our first single last August, and we've released one every month since, plus a special one for Christmas that we did. But the music is original lyrics, original music, produced. Wesley is the brains behind it. And all of the music just speaks to our community's mission and vision and goal and lifting up our communities globally and locally. And so I encourage you, you can go to Triumph Life Center and you can find all of our music there. You can also find it on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, and whatever other digital platforms. I'm just learning all of that too. I have an Apple playlist that I've had for a while, and I got to remember how to do that sometime. But I was introduced through Spotify and iTunes and other places where they don't buy records like we used to. They don't even know what that is, or CDs like we used to. You just download the music and it's right there. So Nadia, if you could just go through, this is our latest one. The one before that we released on Mother's Day, Forces of Nature. It's really the spiral dance and movement song. It's really just wonderful. Let's just see the others. These are our two latest ones. And these are the ones that we've produced over the last year. Sarah Labriza is the meditation tune, Together We Stand. I'm going to try to play that as we end today. Just Be Me. And the winds are changing. Oh, I love that one. I love all of them. The flow of life, be all right, be okay, search for the sun, and seekers. Just beautiful music. Different artists that worked with, some of them we've had here as a guest, that talked about the process of singing or co-writing and working with Wes and producing the music. But if you're looking for something positive to motivate you, to just bring your spirit and your mind and your heart all into harmony, check out our music. Wes, anything you want to say about the music before I go on?
Well, thanks for the support always. I'm excited to have you guys supporting this message. So I'm just happy. The new single, I Am Home, now we are going to a different direction since we completed 1 year just music and music for a month, new music. I'm very happy with this. I think we have a beautiful message to be shared right now to the world, and we're gonna try to get that to reach to more people, right? So that's our goal. We are trying to find strategies. We don't want to just for us to be like listening to that music. We want that music to move other people, and that's the strategy right now. Getting this music out, and that's what I'm gonna be working on it. And we have the last single that I'm gonna find the best dates for any strategy for us to get that word out. So I have a few songs like The Forces of Nature. So far, it's our strongest song
The Forces of Nature.
from all of the ones we
Wow.
have. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's very strong in Brazil. That song, for some reason, it's being added for different playlists. I don't know if you know about playlists, but people add these songs to their playlists. And The Forces of Nature were already added for some different playlists of people that from different kind of religions, like ayahuasca people, yoga people. So I am very happy to have this song out. So that's the strategy that I wanna go for, find the right date for us to be united and all people can hear this message and our message go to the world. So just be with us. Trust just the process.
That's awesome, Wesley. We have a wonderful following in Brazil. And I just appreciate them, just those that follow us and watch us each Sunday, but that our music is taking root there. And sometimes you grow other places before you grow at home. So this is just awesome. It's just awesome to hear. And The Forces of Nature is a song, I think, that is so deeply spiritual that it's not about a particular religion or a religious tone, but it's that spiritual force. I just love it. Add it to your playlist, folks. Oh, okay. Minister Bina, we got to get it growing in Nigeria. You know, we have to have, you to help us share it there so folks can add it to their playlist there. And eventually we'll be able to record the artists there that's a part of our ministry in Nigeria and produce some music with them. All right, what's next, Nadia? We're out of time. Oh, Friday, we'll be back this Friday for our contemplative prayer, meditation, and our bag lunch from 12 to 12:30. This week, I was so excited. We had 8 folks that came in and was here for meditation. Yeah, and so it was like, yes, because I said as we was closing out the meditation, the Spirit just dropped this in me, and it said, if you feed your soul on a regular basis, you'll never go hungry in your body. And sometimes we put feeding our bodies first, but if we feed our soul regularly, not just sporadically, as a habit, we'll never go hungry. So I look forward to Friday here, 12 o'clock to 12:30. What's next? I think I'll be back. This Tuesday is the 4th of July, so we will not have the Divine Feminine Study Group this week or our Bible study. We'll be back next week. That's the 11th, here from 2 to 3. And then I think the next one, Nadia, is our Bible study, community Bible study with Pastor Floyd. We'll be back also next week, Tuesday. Not this week, the following week. And then Tai Chi, Shaka was off for 2 weeks. We're going to be back on the 12th. not this Wednesday, the following Wednesday. I'll post on our social media page. We'll be back. And we're looking forward to, in the fall, doing Tai Chi for children. I've always started talking to some of the children and parents in the neighborhood. So we're looking forward to that. All right, anything else? Did I get through everything? Y'all know I'm long-winded. Was that the last announcement, Nadia? Yeah, I went through the fundraising. Yeah, so Fatina, we're going to, if all minds are clear, we will have our words to live by. Reverend John will come back with his final words, and then he'll give us the closing prayer. I want to just thank everyone that's here. I thought I saw, did I see Shaka in the Zoom room? I think I did. I don't know if he's still there. Just a shout out. He had a birthday this past week, so shout out to Shaka. He's away out of state vacation, but thank you for joining if he's still there. I also wanted to, last week I forgot to mention that Pastor Eric Andrews had a birthday, our own Pastor Andrews. So shout out to him. Belated happy birthday to Pastor Eric Andrews for another movement around the sun. And may God bless each of you, Wesley, and all those that had birthdays this past week. Bless you abundantly in this coming year. All right, that's it. We love you all. Thank you, Julie and Ben. Yes. Thank you for being here. God bless you. I love you much. To our team and to those watching by social media, I'm going to yield to Bettina, who will give us the words to live by, and then Reverend John will come back with the final words and the closing prayer.
A just society is not one built on fear or repression or vengeance or exclusion, but one built on love. Love for our families, love for our neighbors, love for the least amongst us, love for those who look different or worship differently, love for those we don't even know. John Legend.
You can take that down. Reverend John's going to have closing remarks and do the final prayer, his own prayer for us.
Okay, there's an old saying that alchemists have. They say, in order to heal or cure a system, you have to look through the dung or what the system throws out in order to find what will heal the system, because basically the system throws out what would change it. My advice for us today is, in order for us to heal ourselves in the system, we have to reclaim everything that the system is throwing out. We have to look through history and to understand that most religions were started as mystical religions, that the word mystic had become something bad when it actually meant that the person was accepting the fact that there was really a God, that they were not separate but part of this God, and the idea was to transcend our humanity and to become one with the God in thought and in action and deed, as is written about being in the body of Christ, meaning part of Christ. But all of this has been thrown out by the system. So one of the main things that we need to do is to really have trust in what we call God, knowing that if we follow our belief system, we're going to be led into places that we never thought possible. Things that have been thrown out are going to be coming up in our minds, in our thoughts, in our dreams, and in our prayers. And we have to accept the fact that the divine is working with us and guiding us and leading us to truth and justice and growth. So the main thing is to have trust, to know who we are. And if we do that, we will naturally overcome all of the barriers and will shift this system. The group I was with in India, they were from a mystic tradition because they were a monastery. A lot of the monasteries, Christian monasteries, every monastery held onto the mystical tradition, basically. And there was this chant they used to do, and I'd like to do that as a closing. And what happens when you chant, I'll speed this up a little bit. What happens when you chant using certain words is that you have a vibration that takes place in the brain, and where you have the hypothalamus underneath the brain, what happens is it stimulates your pituitary gland, which sends hormones all through your body that relaxes your body. It also causes your body to be healthy. So when you're chanting, you're actually working your body and you're balancing the energy and you're balancing all the chemicals and things in your body and making yourself more healthy, basically. And the idea is you chant until there's silence, and then you just sit in that silence, in the awareness that comes. Then if your mind starts racing again, you just chant again. And then when it gets quiet, you sit in that silence. And after a while, you come in contact with or hear the voice of God. That is a very mystical practice that everyone used to do before the people with the swords and clubs took over most of the religious institutions. So I'd like to lead us into this chant. This chant goes, Om, meaning the undifferentiated energy that has created and is beyond all the universe, which would be sort of like the spirit, the Holy Spirit, I guess. The second part is clean, which is sort of this word that is a pure connection with the God of compassion, the God of the heart. And they use the word Christaya, which means to Christ. Om Clean Christaya Namaha, I bow down to, or I honor. When they do it, you can use different names and it makes the same difference. If you're a different faith, you can use another name, but it's basically that I bow down to the Christ in me, or the Lord of compassion that is within me. And we just do this a few times and then we can close. It's very simple chant, and I'll sort of ring the bell each time we start. It goes like this. Om Klim Christaya Namaha. 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 Thank you for coming today, and may the God of love and peace and joy, the creator of all things, bless you and keep you always. Namaste, everyone.
Shay and Amen. I'm going to share our song, The Forces of Nature, as we close out. Let me know if you can hear everyone.
The forces of nature I find inside me, the source of the power, fulfill all my soul, redeeming the fire, the waters, the winds, a spiral that will lead to the roots of the forces of nature. I find inside nature, the source of the power, the source of my soul, redeeming the fire, the waters, the